Hey guys, we already explored the most expensive units, now we're taking a look at the cheapest in every Total War game. We'll be focusing only on land units and basing everything on their cost and custom battles. Are they total trash or actually viable? Let's dive straight into it. Starting with Rome Total War, the cheapest unit in the game is the humble peasant, specifically the peasants available to most factions in the barbarian invasion campaign, costing just 80 denarii. Nearly every faction can recruit them, though their stats vary slightly between cultures. Funny enough, the absolute worst peasants in terms of stats are actually found in the main campaign, the ones used by the Romans and Greeks. All peasant units share one thing though, they are absolutely terrible in battle with dreadful stats and morale. Their real value lies in migrating population between cities and, let's be honest, serving as target practice for elite troops, offering some great cinematic entertainment. Let's move a few ages forward to Medieval II, where we encounter a familiar unit. The peasants are back for more, and this time the cheapest versions are fielded by the Muslim factions, Mongols and Timurids at 90 gold. You can recognize them by their daggers, unlike the European peasants who wield pitchforks. Those are slightly more expensive but also a bit more effective. Just like their ancient counterparts, the peasants are practically useless in battle. They serve best as cheap cannon fodder, though even then they're barely worth a slot in your army. Next we move into the age of gunpowder with Empire Total War. The cheapest unit here is the Seminis, fielded by the Ottoman Empire at just 200 gold. For their price, their shooting stats are surprisingly decent, they are comparable to the European militia. The big issue however is their limited ammunition. This forces them into hand-to-hand combat much sooner than you'd like, and unfortunately their melee stats are absolutely terrible. They also tend to rout very quickly, making them a tricky unit to use in battle. In Napoleon, the cheapest unit is again fielded by the Ottoman Empire. This time it's the Bashi Bazouks at 250 gold, one of the only melee infantry units in the game. While it's never wise to bring a sword to a gunfight, these guys can actually offer some value if managed correctly. Their melee stats are quite good, especially their charge bonus. If you manage to surprise and charge an enemy, the Bashi Bazooks are able to beat range units costing 2 or even 3 times as much, which makes them quite fun to use. Let's move to the land of the rising sun in Total War Shogun II. The cheapest unit here is the Naginata Levy from the Rise of the Samurai campaign, a unit that performs decently against cavalry but struggles against everything else. If we only consider the main campaign, the standard general is actually the cheapest at 300, and they are followed by the Yari Ashigaru, fielded by all factions. Both of these units are actually amazing. The general is excellent in picking out vulnerable targets, and the Yari Ashigaru are basically able to beat much stronger units when they are in Yari wall. In Fall of the Samurai, we encounter our first artillery unit as the wooded cannon status spot. In a game where artillery is generally seen as being overpowered, the wooden cannons are actually dreadful as they barely hit anything, and if they do, damage is limited as well. Next we'll go back to ancient times in Total War Rome II. Here the plebs and mob units are the cheapest in the game, costing 40 gold, which also makes them the cheapest in the series. They are available in custom battles for the Imperator Augustus campaign. Their only use is keeping stronger units occupied, so you can get your own troops into position. They struggle to get any kills. If you would exclude these units, the slave infantry for the Kush and Numidian factions are the cheapest. Interestingly, these guys have just 5 armor, which is even less than Gallic naked warriors and the mob, making them extremely fragile. That said, on the flanks they can still deal decent damage. In Total War Attila, it's definitely not lonely at the bottom, as 8 units share the spot at 100 gold. First is the cheap Germanic, Celtic, Nordic and Slavic archer units, which struggle in a game that doesn't favor missile units. Secondly, it's the Warhounds unit for the Nordic factions. These beasts are able to offer some value, but they are very tricky to use. Next are the Bagaudae for the Franks and the Nordic Band, 2 units that are just generally very poor in battle. Our list is completed with the Rebellion Militia, fielded by the Tanukids. While they are good filler units in the campaign, they are pretty much target practice in battles. Now we head into fantasy in the original Total War Warhammer. The cheapest unit here is the Peasant Mob, fielded by Britannia at 100 gold. These units are still considered as one of the worst units in the Warhammer trilogy, as they are just very weak across the board. Within the Bretonnian roster, which offers very weak infantry in general, the Peasant Mob stands out as being the worst. In the sequel Warhammer II, the Peasant Mob is still the cheapest unit, but now shares a spot with another. The cost of zombies from the vampire counts have been reduced from 150 to 100 gold, giving them a chance to shine in this video as well. While the zombies are very weak by themselves, they can benefit greatly from synergy with undead mechanics and magic, and therefore they can be viable on the battlefield. They are also great at stalling enemy units, giving the many terror units and monsters of the vampire roster a chance to shine. Now let's head back to realism in Thrones of Britannia, where things get busy at the bottom. A total of 12 units share the title of cheapest unit in the game, proving it's definitely not lonely to be a levy in early medieval Britain. All these units fall into one of two categories. They are either the cheapest spear unit or the cheapest javelin unit in most rosters. The javelins can be effective while flanking, but suffer from low ammunition. The spear units are decent against cavalry, but in a game where strong infantry dominates, it's hard to get value out of them. At least they got plenty of company. Let's move to China in Total War III Kingdoms. Here the cheapest unit is the peasant archers, fielded by the Yellow Turban factions, costing 145 gold. Their range capabilities are actually not that bad, even beating slightly more expensive units like archer militia. The problem is that they offer very limited ammunition and terrible morale, which makes it very important to keep these units out of harm's way. When left untouched, they are able to deal decent damage though. Next up is the beautiful looking Total War Saga Troy. In this game the Dardanian Rebel is the cheapest, costing 210. This is actually one of Dardania's unique units and it definitely has a role in its roster. These guys lack shields and armor, making them easy targets for ranged units, but if they get into melee they are actually not that bad. With their two-handed spears and high speed they are able to chase vulnerable units like archers and take them down. Let's return to the world of Warhammer in Total War Warhammer III. The zombies are back, but this time they don't have to share the spotlight as the cost of peasant mob has actually been increased to 125. Finally the Bretonians can say that they are at least worth more than the undead. If you would only consider new units that were added in Warhammer 3, the Goblin Laborers are the cheapest at 150 gold, fueled by the Chaos Dwarves. With 0 armor and only 12 melee attack, these goblins struggle to get kills. This also makes them much weaker than their regular greenskin counterparts and you kinda feel sorry for them. Finally, let's move to Total War Pharaoh, where 4 units are at the bottom. First of all the aspiring Palisade Raiders, cheap club and shield infantry fielded by Palisade. They share the spot with 3 regional units. First of all the Isuan militia from the lowlands and Isoa region. The others are part of the Sea People's culture, the seafaring clubmen, lightly armored club infantry and the islander young spears. All these units cost 150 gold. In the Dynasties expansion however, one unit beats them all and becomes the cheapest. The Silulu Slingers, fielded by Babylon, only cost 200 gold. These units are absolutely terrible in melee, but at range they compare to most other early game missile units. What makes them really special is that they have an armor rating of 45, which is extremely high for a missile unit in this tier. There's definitely a place in the roster for this unit. And that brings us to the end of the list. You probably expected to see some peasants, but I would say that some of these units are actually quite decent for the price. Let me know what you think. For now, thanks for watching the video and until next time.